Hi guys, in this video I will show you how to send the data which is stored in our database to the client. As you can see, we are having an input for searching the student registration number as well as a button with content search. So if I type a registration number like 1000 and click on this search button, we are going to get the student details of this registration number which is 1000. As you can see, this data, roll number, name, gender, branch, and course are coming from MongoDB database. Also, as you can see, we are getting those details with some animation effect. So let's create this. So first of all, let's create a folder with name student data, and then let's head over to this folder which is student data, and then let's open our folder in our VS Code by using code command. So now our folder is open. So inside this I'm going to create two folders with names client and server. So for client I'm going to use Vite web development server to host my front end files. So to use Vite we can simply use this command called npm create Vite. So after that, it will ask us to name our project. I'm going to name it as client, and then I'm going to select React library and then JavaScript. After that, we can simply go to our folder client and then and use npm i command so that it will install the necessary packages that are needed for our application. So now, after that, if we open our VS Code, as you can see, we are getting a folder with name client. This is coming from our Vite. So now, just wait. It will take some time to install the packages. To run our application, we can use this command called npm rundev. So before running that, just wait for this to be installed. Now the necessary packages are installed. So now we have to use this command npm rundev. Let me copy that and then paste it here. So now if I run it, our front end will be hosted on this port number 5173 in our local host. So if I click on this, it will open it in our Chrome browser. So this is the default page of our front end file, and inside this I'm going to create another folder with name server. So inside this server we are going to write all our backend logic. So first let's build our client folder. So in the client folder we don't need this public folder, so delete that, as well as assets folder, delete this as well, and then remove the unnecessary code from here to here, and let's create a div tag, as well as remove this use state hook, as well as this unnecessary imports. Also remove the default styles which are applied for our app component. So now if you see the output, we are getting an empty page. So first of all, let's build an input as well as button with content search. So for that, I have to use. So here I'm going to use a div tag with class name search container. So inside this search container, I'm going to create an input tag with the type text, as well as add a placeholder like enter registration number, and below this we are going to add a button with content search. So now let's check our output. As you can see, we are getting that. So let's add some styles to this input tag. So for that, as you can see, our app component have already linked it to a CSS file with this name app.css. So let's go to that app.css and let's select this input tag which is inside this edge container. So I'm going to select this edge container and then use input tag. So here I'm going to add some padding to our input, as well as border radius of 8 pixels, and increase the font size to some 18 pixels. Now let's check. Let's remove the border by using border property, and then make the border to be none. So now the border is removed. So now let's make this content to be top as well as to be centered. So this document's root is inside this main.jsx component. As you can see, our app component is rendering inside our main.jsx file. So as you can see, for this main component, and a CSS file is already connected with this name called index.css. So let's go inside that, and inside that, as you can see, we are having a element called body. So let's go inside this and remove this, and let's make the justify content to be centered. So now as you can see it is centered. So now let's add some margin top. So for that you can simply use some 50 pixels here. So 50 pixels of top to bottom as well as 0 pixels from left to right. So now as you can see we are having a gap of 50 pixels between the bodies, between the top of the body as well as for this input element. So now as you can see these two elements are very close to each other, right? So we have to give some gap between this input as well as for this button. So this input and button are inside our div tag with class name called set container. So I have to select that. So inside this, I'm going to select dot set container, and I'm making the display to be flex, and I'm going to use a property called gap, and I'm giving 30 pixels between the input and button. Now as you can see, there is a gap between these two elements. So after that, now so whenever you other type something here, we have to capture those values. So for that, I'm going to use useState hook. So I'm going to create a state variable with name. So let's give the name as register number as well as set register number. So I'm going to use useState. So after clicking on this useState, as you can see, VS Code automatically imports the useState hook. UseState hook. So inside this, initially it will be empty, but whenever you other type something, we're going to call this, an on change event will be triggered. So inside this we're going to call a callback function. It will accept a parameter, so you can give anything you want inside this parameter. I'm just giving it as e. So after that, let's use this set register number function. So this function is used to update the value of this register number variable. So let's call that as well as, so we have a property called e.target.value, which is used to capture the user values. So now whenever user types something here, these values will available under this register number variable. Let me console that so that we can able to see. So dot log register number. So if I refresh this and open the developer tools and then open console, as you can see initially it is empty, but whenever I type something here, those values are coming here, right? Like hi or a registration number like 1900. So those values are coming here. So whenever we type something here, this on change event will be triggered, and inside this on change event, we are calling this set register number function, and we are using this e.target.value to capture the value which is entered by user. So here we can also use anything like event. So if you use event here, you also have to use event here. So now if you see the output, so whatever we are typing here, those are updating inside our register number state variable. Now let me refresh it and close it. Let's remove the console. So after that, on clicking this H button, we are going to call a function. So let's name this function as call API. So let's create this function call API. So whenever user clicks on this H button, we are going to call this call API function. So inside this, I'm going to create a variable called response, and inside this, I'm going to use fetch function. So this fetch function is used to call external API endpoints which are stored inside our backend files. So inside this, I'm going to use backticks, which is template literals. So by using this template literals, you can write inside this strings as well as variables. So you can write strings as normal, but if we want to use any variable, like this register number is variable, right? So to use this inside this template literal, we have to write like this dollar sign and then curly braces. So inside this, you can give whatever variable you want. So here I want to give HTTP and then our localhost address, which is 127.0.0.1, and then I'm going to give a port number called 5000, and then give a root name like get get details, and then we're going to pass this registration number register number. So whatever you ever type something here, we're going to pass that to this root. So this root will be created inside our server folder. So let's go inside our server folder. So since we are using Node for managing our backend, we have to initialize a node project by using a command called npm init. So before that, we have to head over to this folder from command prompt. So let's open another tab to run our server file. As you can see, first we have to head over to the student data folder, cd student data, and then let's go to our server folder. After that, simply use this command called npm init s. So after that, it will initialize a node project. So if you open the server folder now, you can see we are getting a file with name package.json. So I'm going to use Express to build our server. So to use Express, we have to install that first. So to install, we can simply write this command called npm I, which means install. After that, I'm going to use a package called Express. I'm also going to use Mongoose package. So this Mongoose package is used to connect our database, connect MongoDB database. Let's enter that. After that, it will install these two packages. Just wait for some time. So now it is successfully installed. Let me also install a package called Nodemon. So by using Nodemon, our server will automatically updated. So if we don't use Nodemon, we have to manually run our server whenever we make changes. But by taking help of this Nodemon package, we can simply, so this Nodemon will automatically runs our server whenever we make some changes. So after that, inside this server, I'm going to create a file with name server.js. So since we have already installed our Express and Mongoose packages, so to know whether those packages are installed or not, simply go to this package.json file. So inside this, you can see we have a property called dependencies. Inside this, we are having these three packages because we have installed those from our terminal, right? That's why we are getting those inside this dependencies property. So now we have to import those. So let's import our Express from Express. After that, let's give a port number. Since in our front end, let me open the front end file. Close this. So in our front end, we have given the port number as 5000, right? So we have to give that here, 5000. After that, let's create a variable with name app, and then I'm going to reference our Express framework for this app variable. So now whatever functions which are inside this Express package, we can simply use those by using this app variable. So in our Express, we have a function called to listen to a specific port number. So inside this, I'm going to give the first parameter as a port. So our port is stored inside this port variable, right? So that's why I have given this port. And then after that, simply use the callback function. And then inside this, I'm going to use, I'm going to console a message like server started. So now let's run over this server.js file from command prompt. So I'm going to run my file by using this node1 package. So now we're getting an error to load an ES module set type module. Okay, guys. So if we are using this import keyword, we have to make the type to be module inside our package.json file. So here I'm going to use the type property and then giving the value as module. Now we don't get any errors. Let me clear this screen and then use nodemon and then our root file, which is server.js. So now as you can see, we are getting this message called server started, which means our server has successfully started on this port number 5000. So now whenever we make changes in our server.js file, this nodemon package will automatically watch us and restarts it. So now to check whether our server is running or not, so we have a function called get in our express module. So inside this, the first parameter will be a root, and then second parameter will be a callback function with these parameters, which are request and response. So in response, we have a function called send, and inside this, I'm going to write a message called hi from back. Now let's check. So I'm going to use localhost and then our backend, our server port number is 5000. So now if I click on this, as you can see, we are getting the message called hi from backend. That means our server is successfully running on this port number called 5000. So now let's remove this, then close our tab. So now whenever user types their registration number and clicks on this search button, we are going to call this API endpoint, right? So let's create this API endpoint inside our server folder. So since we are getting the details from our database, we have to use get method. So in Express, we have a method called get. So inside this, the first parameter will be, since we are using this get details, we have to use that inside our server folder. Get details, and then we have this root parameter called registered number. So to capture the registered number inside our server, we have to use this colon and then give the name you want. So I'm going to give it as register number. You can give anything you want. And then the second parameter will be a callback function with parameters request number response. So inside this, so now let's connect our MongoDB database to our server. So inside this server, I'm going to create a folder with name database. So inside this database, I'm going to create a file with name connect mongodb.js. So inside this, I'm going to use Mongoose package. We have already installed Mongoose package, right? So you can directly import Mongoose from the Mongoose package. Now Mongoose is imported in our connect mongodb.js file. So inside this, I'm going to create a function with name connect mongodb. So inside this, so in Mongoose, we have a function called connect. So inside this connect function, we have to give the MongoDB URI. So let me open my MongoDB compass connect. So as you can see, the URI is this localhost 27017. So inside this, you have to give MongoDB and then colon and then forward slash. After that, you have to give the localhost and then the port number, which is 27017. Let's give that 27017. And then we can give a database name. So I'm going to give my database name as student. Let's make the capital as student data. So our database name is student data. So here, as you can see, we are not having any database called student data, right? So after some time, we are going to get a database with the student data name. So this function will return a promise. So since it returns a promise, we have to await that. So since we are using await, we have to make the function to be asynchronous. So whenever we connect to this MongoDB, it will take some time. So since it is taking some time, we have to await that by using this await keyword. So since we are using await, we have to make the function to be asynchronous. So now it returns a promise, right? So I'm going to use then method. So if the connection is successful, we will go inside this then function, and inside that I'm going to console a message with MongoDB connection successful. So if MongoDB is not connected successful, we will go inside this catch block. Then it will take a parameter. Let's console that console.log. So now let's export this function to use in our server.js file by using export default and then function name connect to MongoDB. Now let's import this connect to MongoDB function in our server.js file. Import connect MongoDB. So now it is successfully imported. Here we have to give .js. So now let's call this connect MongoDB function inside our lesson function connect MongoDB. Now if you see the terminal, as you can see, we are getting a message like MongoDB connection successful, which means our MongoDB database is successfully connected to our server. So if you make some errors like it, so now if you see the terminal, as you can see, we are not getting any messages like this MongoDB connection successful because we have given wrong port number. So we have to give 7 here. Now if you see the output, you can see the message which is MongoDB connection successful, which is coming from our connect MongoDB.js file. So now our server is connected with MongoDB database. So after that, let's check our MongoDB campus. So inside this, we didn't get the database with the student data name because we have not created a collection for this student data database. So inside this server folder, I'm going to create another folder with name database structure, and inside this, I'm going to create a file with name database structure dot js. So inside this, I'm going to import the mongoose package from the mongoose package. So now I'm going to create a variable with name user schema. So schema is like the structure of our database. So every every user have name, registered number, gender, as well as course and so many properties, right? So since we are going to get the details of the students with name, registered number, gender, course and branch, we have to give those. So to create a schema, we can simply use a function which is inside our mongoose package called schema. So by using this schema function, we can able to create a schema for our database. So in this schema, we are going to have registered number. So the value of this will be a string. Let me copy this. Let me copy this and paste it here for 5 times. So second will be full name and then gender and then branch and then course. So this is our database structure. So we are going to get these details in our front end. After that, we have to create a model. So I'm going to give the variable name as your model. So inside this, we have a method in mongoose package called model. So inside this model, the first parameter will be our collection name. So I'm going to give the collection name as student details. And then the second parameter will be our schema, database structure. Since our database structure is inside our user schema variable, we have to give that here, user schema. Now let's export this. Export default user model. Now let's import this in our server.js file. Import user model. So now our user model is successfully imported inside our server.js file. So after that, inside this, I'm going to create try catch block. Inside the catch block, we're going to catch all the errors. So if there is any error, we're going to console that error as well as return a response to our client by using response.status function. And inside this, I'm going to use 404 error code, which means error, and then JSON add a property with name error and then give the value as internal server error. So inside the try block, we have to write all the data. So let's check. Now as you can see, we are getting this student data database. We are getting the database with this name student data inside our MongoDB campus, as you can see, right? So inside this, we are getting the student details collection, which is coming from our here. In the model function, we have given the collection name as student details, right? That's why we are getting the student details. So inside this, I'm going to import some data by using this add data option. I'm going to import file and this. So after that, click on import. As you can see, our collection is successfully updated with some 8 documents. As you can see, every document have roll number, full name, branch, course, gender. So we're having 8 documents. So whenever user types the registration number, and if the registration number is matches with our database, we are going to get those details. Like if your other types 1002 here, we have to send this details to the client. Now, so let me close all files and open server.js. So first we have to check whether the details entered by user in the client side are existing in our database or not, right? So for that, I'm going to create a variable called student. So inside this student, we have to use this user model because where is that this. So our user model is referencing our student details collection, and inside the student details collection, we have all the documents, right? So since we have assigned this function to this user model, we have to give that here user model, and we have a function called find one to check whether the entered registration number is existing in our database or not. And inside this, since we are going to check based on this roll number property, we have to give that here roll number. So replace this with roll number because in the database I have given roll number property, right? That's why I have given this roll number here. So here we also have to change these three properties because as you can see in the database we are having the branch course gender in small letters. But here we have given the first letters as capital. We have to change those. Change the capital B to small b as well as capital C to small c. So now let's give a value to our roll number property with this request dot params dot this register number. Let's change that to a roll number. Roll number. I will tell you why I have to use this request dot params. So roll number. So whenever user types their registration number from here like 1000 and clicks on this search button, where let me open the app.js example. We're calling, we're sending a request to this backend API endpoint, right? And in the request, we are sending this registered number, which is this whatever user enters here. So in the request, we are passing this value to our backend, right? So inside our backend, we have to capture that value, and we are storing that inside this roll number query parameter. So in order to access that this value in the server, we have to use this request parameter, and the request parameter we have a function called params, and and the params after that we have to give the query parameter, which is this. So whatever you have given here, that should be given here. So now the value of this roll number is whatever user types something here. So after that, if the entered register number is found in our database, we are going to send that student details to our front end by using this response.send and then student. So if the student details are not found, we are going to send a response with the status code 404 with the status code 404, and then send a JSON message like your not your student not found. So now we can able to send the student details from server to client. Now in our front end, we have to capture this student details when they are found. So for that, I'm going to create a state variable with name student and then a function to update the student variable. So initially the value of the student will be null. So let's change this register number to roll number as well as here here set roll number. So initially the value of the student will be null because initially the value of the registration number is empty, right? That's why I have to give this null. That means false. But after getting a response from the backend, we're going to call this set student function, and we're going to update the student if the student registration number is found. So let me show that. So our backend will take some time to give a response. So we have to await this by using await, and then use asynchronous. After that, so if response dot okay, which means if we don't receive any error from response, we are going to create a variable like data, and then we have to convert the data received from server to be JSON. So the response received from server is stored inside our response variable, right? And the response received from server will be in bytes. So we have to convert that bytes into a JSON, which will be readable by students. So not students, it's users. So to convert that bytes into a human readable data, we have to use this JSON function, and then we are storing that inside our data. So whatever response received from server, which will be stored inside this response, and then we are converting that response to a JSON and then storing it inside our data variable. So after that, we have to call this set student function and update that student variable with the data received from server. So after that, so we're going to display the user details here, right, below this input. So here, since we are capturing JSX expression, we have to write those inside the curly braces. After that, so if the student is true, that means if we get any details, we are going to create a div tag with class name student details, and inside this, I'm going to create five paragraph tags, two, three, four, and then five. So inside this, first we'll get we will display the registration number of the student. So inside this, we have to use the student variable. So the student variable in front end, the student variable is referencing our the MongoDB database collection. So the first one will be a roll number. So I have to use student dot roll number, and then name, which will be student dot name, and then gender, which will be student dot gender, and then branch, which will be student dot branch, and then course, which will be student dot course. So we are getting all these properties in our front end. So after that, let's check whether it's working or not. 1000 and recon search. I'm not getting anything. Let me open the console. The instance number is not defined at all app.jsx at line number 25. App.jsx 25 student.name. Okay, guys, we have to enter roll number here, right? Because we have given the state variable name as roll number. So now refresh 1000 on search. Still, we are getting an error. Okay, guys, this is because of so we can able to send a request to our response to our server, but to receive the request in our server, we have to use a package called cors. So by using cors, we can accept the request received from our client. So we have to install cors in our backend. So let me clear the screen, and then we have to use cors package by using npm cors. So after that, it will install it. Now let's run our root file, which is server.js. Now it's running. After that, let's import that in our server.js file. So let's import cors from cors. Let's use that cors by using app.use function. Then cors. So this cors will take an object with properties origin. So in the origin, we have to specify our front end port number, which is localhost 5173, right? So I have to specify that here. HTTP localhost and then 5173, as well as you have to specify another property called credentials to be true. So now our server can able to receive the request from this port number, which is our front end. Our front end is 5173, right? Now if I refresh it, then I think that's it. Now let's check whether it's working or not. After 1000 button. So after clicking on search button, we are receiving an error from our server, which means 404 not found. So here we have two response codes with same 404 error code. Let me change one so that we can able to know whether the error is receiving from this else block or this catch block. So here I'm going to write 500. Now let's check. I refresh it and enter 1000 and click on search. We're getting 500 internal server error, which means we are getting error from here. So that means we are having an error in our try block. Let me open my terminal. So in our server, so here server.js 18th line, we are having an error in 18th line. So 18th line is this. We are sending this student. Okay, guys, we have to avoid this because whenever we are going to check whether the entered roll number is registered in or not, our database will take some time to respond to our server. So we have to avoid this. Since we are using await, we have to make this function asynchronous. Now I think it will work. Let's check again. Let's enter the registration number as 1000 and click on search. Now as you can see, we are getting an output which is, so these texts are coming from our front end, which are this registration number, name, gender, branch, course, which are coming from React, and these values are coming from our MongoDB database 1000. But here in the name field, we are not getting the name. So I think we have made a mistake in the name field. Student dot name here. Okay, guys, we have to give this full name property here. So we don't have a property in our database with name. So we have to convert that into a full name. Now I think we will get full name as well. As you can see, we are getting the full name. So these values are coming from MongoDB database and these strings are coming from our React. So now if I let me enter another roll number. So let's enter this 1006 whether we will get the full name as Emma Watson or not. So if I type 1006 and click on search, you can see where the value of this name and gender and branch and course, not course, the name and gender have changed, right? So if I enter 1000 and click on search, you can see the name and gender value and the registration number value is changed. If I enter 1003, we are getting the name as Steven Doe because the roll number 1003 name is Steven Doe, right? That's why we are getting Steven Doe here. So now let's style this content by using CSS. So this all paragraph tags are inside this div tag with class name student details, right? So let's go inside our app.css file and then let's select our student details div tag, add the background color, some light black color, this color, and then give the padding of 30 pixels, give border radius of 10 pixels and make the border to be none. And now let's check how it's looking. Okay, it's looking good, but as you can see, we don't have any space between these two. So these two are inside our this div tag, right? So let's give a class name for this div tag as container. Let's select this container here, dot container, make the display to be flex and the gap to be some 20 pixels. After that, okay, these three are coming in same row because we have make the display to be flex. So we have to change the flex direction to be column. Now it's looking good, right? So now let's add some style to this paragraph tags. So our paragraph tags are inside this div tag with class name student details. So I have to select dot student details and then add paragraph tag. Let's add some padding of 10 pixels. Remove the border and add some border radius to get rounded corners and then add background color add background with linear gradient of 180 degrees with white color and then light salmon color. Now let's check. I think it's looking good, right? But we have to change the text color from white to black. The color to be black, and then increase the font weight by using bolder. Now I think it's looking good, right? So if I click on refresh and enter some registration number and click on this switch button, we are getting the details with some beautiful colors. So now let's add some animation for our content. So to animate the content, I'm going to use a library called GSAP, which stands for Greenstock Animation Platform. So by using GSAP, we can animate our web page. So in order to use GSAP, first we have to install that in our front end. So let me install GSAP in client folder by using npm gsap. So after that, it will install the GSAP package. As you can see, it is successfully installed. Now let's run the server again. And then now let's import GSAP in our app component. So here I'm going to import GSAP from GSAP. So I'm going to add a state variable with name should animate and then set should animate. So initially the value of this should animate will be false because we don't want to add the animation initially, but we are going to add animation after the other clicks on this search button. So after clicking on search button, we are going to receive a response from our server, right? So if the response is okay, we are going to call this set should animate function, and we are going to change the value of the should animate variable from false to true. So now let's use effect hook, and inside this the first parameter will be a callback function. So inside this I'm going to call this gsap, and then inside gsap we have a function called from. So this from function will take the first parameter. So I have to give the first parameter with the element we want. Since I want to add animation for this div tag with class name student details, here I have to give student details, and the second parameter will be an object with some properties. So inside this app we have some properties. So I'm going to use the first property opacity. So I'm going to make this as 0. So initially the this tag will not be visible, and then I'm going to add ease property. So by using this ease property and make the value to be elastic, will add some bouncy effect to this div tag with class name student details, and then I'm going to add y to be minus 100, which means initially these styles will be applied like. So the student details position is here, right? But after we have make this y to be minus 100, initially it will be here, and then it will come down after clicking on this switch button. So let me show you. If I click 1000 and click on search, as you can see, they are coming from top to bottom because we are telling the GSAP to be initially add these styles, and after that we are going to add these styles. So if I add two here, it will be not visible. So if I click on 1000 and click on search, as you can see, they are going to top because I have given here gsap.2. So I have to use give from, so that initially the styles will be applied and then after the styles will be applied. So now let's add some styles to our paragraph tags as well. So this paragraph tags. So here I'm going to use again gsap.from, and then here we have to select this paragraph tag which are inside the student details. So I have to add student details and then p. Second parameter will be object. So initially they will be not visible, and then I'm going to add rotate property. So I'm going to add rotate to be 360 degrees so that this paragraph tags will rotate to the 360 degrees. And then I'm going to add stagger property with value 1, which means first, so it will take 1 second to render each element. Like first registration number will be displayed, after 1 second name will be displayed, after 1 second gender, and then branch, and then course, because we have given 1. So every between every element to be rendered there will be 1 second delay. So I think that will work. Let's check whether it's working or not. So if I type some number and click on search, as you can see, those styles are coming. So if I change this value to 3, as you can see, these styles are coming again and again, and it is making our web page to look worst. So this is happening because of this use effect hook. So whenever there are some changes in this file, this use effect hook will be automatically re-rendered, and the inside use effect hook we are adding this animation, right? So when you type something here in the input variable, input tag, the value of this roll number will be changed, right? Since it is changed, this use effect hook is again re-rendering and again adding this animation, right? So to prevent that behavior, inside this use effect hook we have to give this second parameter, which is dependencies. So here I only want to add this animation when they should animate, when the should animate is changed. Should animate value is changed. The should animate value is changed once we receive a response from the server, right? Because once we are receiving the response from server, we are changing the value of the should animate to be true. So once this is changed, the should animate is changed. This use effect will observe that and only add this animation. So let me show you that so that you can understand. So if I click on this, and as you can see, those animations are coming. Now if I type something like 1003, as you can see, it is not behaving like earlier. Like, let me remove this. So now if I type click on search, let me refresh it. So if I enter 1000 and click on search, so these animations are coming from this use effect hook. So if I type something here like 1003, as you can see, these animations are coming again, even after, even I don't click on the search button, because this use effect will notice the change which is coming from our input. So after entering something in input, the value of this roll number is changed, right? So that change will be observed by this use effect hook, and it will again add these animations. So to prevent that behavior, we have to give the second parameter, which is dependencies. So we are telling the use effect hook to only add this animation values once there is a change in this should animate variable. So now if you try to add 1000 and click on search, now if I try to enter different number here, you can see those animations are not reapplying again. So now if I click on again different number, this the animations are not coming. As you can see, if I click on 1005 and click on search, those tiles are not coming, but the values are changing. So here we also have to tell the use effect hook. So whenever there is a change in student variable, we are going to tell the use effect hook to re-render the component. So now if you try to add 1000 and click on search, you can see those animations are coming. Now again if I type different number and click on search, as you can see those tiles are reapplying again, because we are telling the use effect hook to be add this animation once there is a change in these two variables. So after clicking on search here, the value of the student will be changed, right? Since the value of student is changed, this use effect will be automatically re-rendered, and inside this we are telling the gsap to add these animations. So that's why we are getting the animations again. If I enter different number, these animations are coming. So if user tries to enter the number which is not existing in our database and click on search button, as you can see, we are not, the web page is not changing anything, because this entered registration number is not existing in our database. So if the user entered number is not existing in our database, we have to send a pop-up message to the user so that they can able to know whether this number is existing or not. So for that, we can simply go here. So if the register number is not existed in our data, the response of the server is not okay. So in that case, we have to use else block and send an alert message like student not found. So now if user tries to enter the number which is not existing in our database and try to click on search, as you can see, a pop-up message is displaying so that user can able to know what is happening. So this pop-up message is coming from Chrome by default. So if you want to send a custom pop-up messages like, so if you want to send a custom pop-up messages like this, like, wait, As you can see, these are custom pop-up messages. So you can simply send a custom pop-up messages by using this React Hothost. So if you want to know how to send custom pop-up messages using this React Hothost, I have already explained in my previous videos. So if you want to watch it, I will give you that video link in top right corner. Simply click on that and watch it. So that's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching.